Kethril pressed all 4 of his hands against his ears, but the sound cut through anyway. Red lights flashed across the bridge of the Galactic survey vessel. Infinite caution. The ship was falling apart around him, and he could do nothing but watch. All crew to escape pods, the computer announced in its calm, emotionless voice. Hull breach in sections 4 through 9. Engine failure imminent. All crew to escape pods. Kethril was already running. His long, thin legs carried him through the shaking corridors as pieces of the ceiling fell around him. He was a senior xenobiologist with 17 academic degrees. He had studied over 300 alien species. He had written papers that were read across the galaxy. None of that mattered now. Now he was just another creature, trying not to die. He reached the escape pod bay and threw himself into the nearest pod. His 4 hands shook as he hit the launch button. The pod shot away from the dying ship and through the small window. Kethril watched the infinite caution break into pieces. Then he looked down at the planet below, and his blood turned cold. Nex AR-7. Every scientist in the galaxy knew that name. It was a Class-12 Deathworld, the highest danger rating possible. The Galactic Council had looked at this planet, studied it for exactly 3 days, and then written one word across its entire file: do not. Not do not land, not do not explore. Just do not. 3 survey teams had tried to study Nexus 7 over the past century. None of them came back, and now Kethril was falling straight toward it. The pod hit the atmosphere hard. Fire filled the window. Kethril closed all 3 of his eyes and prayed to gods he did not really believe in. The pod shook and screamed and burned. Then suddenly everything went quiet. He opened his eyes. He was alive. The pod had landed in a valley, surrounded by strange trees. They were not like any trees Kethril had ever seen. They looked like they were made of crystal, and they glowed with a soft purple light. His scanner beeped, and he looked at the readings with growing horror. The atmosphere contained traces of acid. The ambient radiation was well above safe levels. The ground temperature was shifting wildly, jumping 20 degrees in either direction every few minutes. The trees themselves were giving off some kind of toxic pollen, and those were just the things. His scanner could detect Kethril's species. The Valorians had evolved on a peaceful world, with stable weather and no predators. They were thin, delicate creatures built for thinking, not surviving. Their skin was pale blue and sensitive to almost everything. Their bones were light and broke easily. They needed specific temperatures, specific humidity, specific air quality. This planet had none of those things. Kethril sat in his pod and felt despair wash over him. He was going to die here, alone, on a planet that seemed designed by the universe itself to kill anything that landed on it. Then he heard something that made no sense. Whistling. Someone was whistling a tune. A happy tune? It's like something you might whistle while taking a pleasant walk? Kethril pressed his face against the pod window and looked outside. About 50 meters away, another escape pod had crashed. It was more damaged than his, with one whole side torn open. And climbing out of the wreckage was a human. Kethril had met humans before. Everyone in the galaxy had met humans by now. They had spread across the stars with a speed that made other species nervous. They were not the smartest species, or the strongest, or the most advanced. But somehow they were everywhere, doing everything, sticking their strange little fingers into every corner of the galaxy. This human was female, with dark hair cut short and brown skin covered in soot and small cuts. She wore the gray uniform of an engineering officer. As Kethril watched, she pulled herself free of the pod, stood up, and looked around at the hellscape surrounding her. The crystal trees hummed with radiation. The sky crackled with electromagnetic storms. The ground shifted beneath her feet. Something with far too many legs watched from the shadows between the trees. The human stretched her arms above her head and cracked her back. Well, she said out loud, as if she was talking to the planet itself. So, ... camping? Kethril felt his mind go blank. He opened his pod door and stumbled outside, nearly falling as the shifting ground moved under him. Are you insane? He called out, his translator turning his words into the human language. Do Do you not understand where we are? The human turned and smiled at him. She did not seem surprised or worried. She seemed almost pleased to see him. Oh, good. Another survivor, she said. I'm Maya Chen. Engineering, 3rd class. You. I am Kethril, he said, still unable to process her calmness. Senior xenobiologist. We are on Nexer 7. This is a Class-12 Deathworld. The most dangerous classification in the entire galactic system. Maya nodded. Yeah, I saw the planet on the way down. Figured it was something like that. She looked around again, studying the crystal trees, the unstable ground, the creatures watching from the shadows. Could be worse? Could be worse? Kethril felt his voice rise higher than he intended. 3 survey teams have died on this planet. The atmosphere is acidic. The radiation will kill us within days. There are predators here that the galactic database classifies as extinction-level threats. Right, Maya said. So we should probably find some shelter before it gets dark. She started walking toward the remains of her pod, picking through the wreckage with calm efficiency. Kethril stared at her back, trying to understand what he was seeing. Did you not hear what I said? He asked. We are going to die here. Maya pulled a piece of metal from the wreckage and examined it. Maybe, she said. Or maybe not. Either way, standing around worrying about it won't help. She looked at him over her shoulder. You coming? Kethril did not know what to say. His entire body was screaming at him to panic, to hide, to curl into a ball and wait for death. But something about this human made him pause. She was not ignoring the danger. She clearly understood where they were. But she was not letting that understanding paralyze her. She was adapting. Kethril took a step toward her, and the ground shifted again beneath his feet. He stumbled, his long legs tangling together, and started to fall toward the toxic soil. Maya moved fast. She crossed the distance between them in seconds and caught him before he hit the ground. Her hands were strong and steady. Careful, she said. Ground's unstable? You'll want to take shorter steps. Keep your weight centered. Kethril looked up at her. She was still smiling. Why are you not afraid? He whispered. Maya helped him stand up straight. She looked around at the deadly planet surrounding them, at the poisonous air and the hungry shadows and the unstable earth. Then she shrugged. Being afraid won't keep me alive, she said. But setting up camp? Finding water? Building a fire? She grinned. Those things might. She turned and walked back toward the wreckage. After a moment, Kethril followed her. He did not know what else to do. Behind them, the creatures in the shadows watched and waited. Above them, the electromagnetic storms painted the sky in violent colors. Around them, the crystal trees hummed their deadly song, and Maya Chen started whistling again. They were stranded on one of the deadliest planets in the known galaxy. With almost nothing, the human was whistling. Kethril had a terrible feeling that this was going to be a very strange experience. He had no idea how right he was. Kethril woke up confused. The last thing he remembered was watching Maya work on some kind of structure. He had felt dizzy and strange, and then everything had gone dark. Now he was lying on a soft surface inside some kind of shelter. Dim light came through walls made of woven plant fiber and metal sheets. He could hear sounds from outside. Movement. Humming. He sat up slowly and looked around. The shelter was simple, but well built. The floor was covered with large leaves that had been dried somehow. A pile of supplies sat in one corner. Everything was neat and organized. Kethril crawled to the shelter entrance and looked outside. What he saw made him freeze. Maya had built a camp in the hours since he had passed out. She had created something that looked almost permanent. A trench surrounded the shelter, filled with sharp pieces of metal. A fire pit sat in the center of the camp, surrounded by stones, with actual fire burning inside it. Pieces of pod debris had been turned into tools and containers. Some kind of water collection system dripped slowly into a bowl made from curved metal, and Maya herself was sitting by the fire, using a sharp rock to shape a long piece of wood into a point. Good. You're awake, she said without looking up. You fainted. Probably the atmosphere. Your species doesn't handle acidic air well, right? Kethril stepped outside carefully. The ground had stopped shifting in this area, and he noticed that Maya had cleared away the top layer of soil around the camp. "How long was I unconscious?" he asked. "About 6 hours. Don't worry, I kept watch." She held up the wooden stick and examined the point. "You hungry? I found some things that might be edible." She reached over to a flat piece of metal that she was using as a plate. On it sat several strange objects. Some looked like fruits, round and blue. Others looked like roots, thick and covered in dirt. All of them looked dangerous. "How do you know those are safe to eat?" Kethril asked. Maya shrugged. "I don't, really. But I tested them." She held up her arm, showing a small red patch on her skin. "Rubbed a bit on my skin first. Waited an hour. No bad reaction. Then I put a tiny piece in my mouth, just on my tongue. Waited another hour. Nothing bad happened. So I ate a small piece and waited again." She grinned. "That was 4 hours ago. I feel fine." Threll stared at her. "You tested potentially deadly alien food on yourself?" "Well, yeah. How else would I know if it's safe?" "You could die." "I could die from not eating, too." Maya picked up one of the blue fruits and took a bite. "These actually taste pretty good. Kind of like apples mixed with ... something. I don't know. They're good, though." She held one out to Kethril. He looked at it with deep suspicion, but took it anyway. His stomach was making noises, and he realized he had not eaten since before the crash. He bit into the fruit carefully. It was sweet, with a texture that was strange, but not unpleasant. Maya was right. It was not bad. "How did you build all of this?" he asked, looking around the camp again. "You had nothing. We have almost no supplies." Maya finished sharpening her stick and set it aside. She picked up another piece of wood and started working on that one too. "I had what I needed," she said. "Metal from the pods, plants from the forest, rocks from the ground, fire from friction and dry material." She looked up at him. "Humans learn this stuff when we're young. Survival skills. My grandmother was very serious about it. She grew up in a place where knowing how to survive in nature could save your life." Kethril sat down near the fire, staying far enough from the flames to feel safe, but close enough to feel warmth. The temperature on this planet dropped quickly, and he was already feeling cold. "Your species trains children to survive in deadly environments?" he asked. "Why?" Maya laughed. "Because our planet is a deadly environment. I mean, not like this place. But Earth has deserts where you can die from heat, frozen areas where you can die from cold, forests with animals that want to eat you, mountains where the air gets too thin to breathe, oceans with creatures that are basically nightmares with teeth." She paused her work and looked at him seriously. "Humans learned a long time ago that nature doesn't care about us. It will kill us if we're not careful. So we learned to be careful. We learned to adapt. We learned to use whatever was around us to stay alive." Kethril tried to process this information. His own homeworld, Valoria, was peaceful. The weather was always mild. The animals were gentle. The plants were safe. His people had evolved in a place where survival was easy, so they had focused on other things. Art, science, philosophy. But humans had evolved on a planet that was actively trying to kill them. "Your world sounds terrifying," he said. Maya shrugged. "It's home. And honestly, compared to this place, Earth is pretty nice." She stood up and walked to the edge of the camp. "But the principles are the same. Find shelter. Find water. Find food. Avoid predators. Stay warm." She turned back to him. "Simple, really." "Nothing about this is simple," Kethril said. "Sure it is. It's not easy, but it's simple. There's a difference." Before Kethril could respond, movement caught his eye. Something was at the edge of the camp, just beyond the light of the fire. He could see eyes reflecting the flames. "Many eyes, Maya," he whispered, fear freezing his body. "There is something watching us." Maya did not turn around. "Yeah, I know. They've been there for about an hour. I think they're curious." "Curious?" Kethril's voice rose. They are predators. Probably. Maya picked up one of her sharpened sticks and held it casually. But they haven't attacked yet. That means they're not sure about us. We're something new to them. She finally turned and looked at the watching eyes. Kethril expected her to show fear, or at least concern. Instead, she just studied the darkness like she was reading a book. 3 of them, she said. Medium-sized? They're staying downwind, so they're smart enough to know about smell. They're keeping their distance, which means they're cautious. How can you possibly know all that? The way their eyes move, how far apart they are. Where they're positioned, Maya smiled slightly. Predators are pretty similar everywhere. They don't want to fight unless they know they can win. So we just need to make them think they can't. She walked to the fire and added more fuel. The flames rose higher, throwing light further into the darkness. The watching eyes moved back. Fire, Maya said. Most animals are afraid of it. They don't know what it is, but they know it's dangerous. She picked up a piece of metal and banged it against a rock, creating a loud, sharp sound. The eyes retreated further, and noise. Unexpected sounds confuse predators. Makes them nervous. Kethril watched the eyes disappear into the darkness. His heart was still pounding, but he was also feeling something else. Something unexpected hope. You really think we can survive here, he said. Maya sat back down by the fire. I think we have a chance, which is more than I would have said this morning. She looked at him with steady eyes. But I need you to help me. I know survival stuff, but you know science stuff. You can tell me what's poisonous, what's dangerous, what to avoid. We work together. We might actually make it. Kethril looked down at his 4 hands. They were built for delicate work, for lab equipment and data tablets. Not for survival on a Deathworld, but maybe that did not matter. Maybe what mattered was using what he had, just like Maya said. Kay said, I will help you. Maya smiled and handed him a fruit. Good, now eat something. Tomorrow, we need to find a better water source, and you're going to need your strength. That night, Kethril lay in the shelter and listened to the sounds of the alien planet around him. Strange calls in the darkness, the hum of the crystal trees, the crackle of the fire that Maya kept burning through the night. He should have been terrified. He was stranded on a Class-12 Deathworld, with almost no supplies and no hope of rescue for weeks. But somehow, lying there in the darkness with a human keeping watch outside, he felt something he had not expected to feel. He felt like maybe, just maybe, they might actually survive this. Outside, Maya added another log to the fire and watched the darkness with patient eyes. This was not her first difficult situation. It probably would not be her last, but she would handle it the same way she handled everything, one problem at a time. By the 5th day on Nectar 7, Kethril had learned many things about humans. He had learned that they could eat almost anything and survive. He had learned that they could function on very little sleep. He had learned that they sweated through their skin to control their body temperature, which he found both disgusting and fascinating. But the most important thing he learned was that humans did not know how to give up. Maya had been working nonstop since they crashed. She had improved the shelter, expanded the camp, created tools from nothing, and found 3 different sources of food. She had even started teaching Kethril basic survival skills, though his thin body and delicate hands made most physical tasks difficult for him, and through all of it, she had been watching the forest. Something was watching them back. Kethril had noticed it on the 2nd day. A shape in the shadows that moved when they moved and stopped when they stopped. His scanner, which was running out of power, had identified it on the 3rd day. Nexarian Stalker. Class up Predator. Responsible for the deaths of 3 previous survey teams on this planet, the creature was patient. It did not attack. It just watched and waited and circled their camp like a dark ghost. Every time Kethril saw it, his body froze with fear. His species had evolved as prey animals on a gentle world. Every part of him screamed to run, to hide, to make himself small and hope the predator would not notice him. Maya had a different reaction. It's still there, she said on the 5th morning, looking at the shadows while she sharpened her spears. Closer today. I think it's getting ready. Cathrell's 4 hands trembled as he tried to help sort their food supplies. Getting ready for what? To make a decision. Maya tested the point of her spear against her thumb. Predators are smart. They don't just attack anything they see. They watch first. They learn. They figure out if the prey is worth the risk. What has it learned about us? Maya smiled, but there was no humor in it. That's what I'm trying to figure out. The day passed slowly. Cathrall tried to focus on his work, analyzing samples with his dying scanner and recording notes about the local ecosystem, but his eyes kept moving to the shadows. The creature was out there, waiting. As the sun began to set, Maya stood up from her work. She picked up 2 of her spears and walked to the edge of the camp. Maya? Cathrall called. What are you doing? Testing a theory, she said. She stepped past the defensive trench, past the line of sharpened sticks she had planted around the camp. She walked into the open space between their camp and the forest, and she stood there, waiting. Cathrall wanted to scream at her to come back, but something made him stay quiet. Something in the way she stood, calm and ready, told him that this was intentional. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the creature emerged from the shadows. It was horrible. That was the only word Cathrall could find for it. The Nyxarian stalker stood on 4 legs, each one ending in curved claws as long as his forearm. Its body was covered in armored scales that shifted color as it moved. Its head was mostly mouth, filled with teeth that looked like broken glass. And its eyes, all 6 of them, were fixed on Maya with terrible intelligence. It was easily 3 times her size. Its claws could cut through metal. Its scales could deflect most weapons. According to the Galactic database, it was one of the deadliest predators ever discovered, and it was walking toward Maya with slow, deliberate steps. Cathrall tried to call out, but his voice died in his throat. His body refused to move. Every instinct his species had developed over millions of years told him one thing: freeze. Do not draw attention. Let the predator take someone else. He hated himself for feeling that way, but he could not fight it. Maya did not freeze. She did not run. She did something that made no sense at all. She made herself bigger. She raised her arms wide, holding a spear in each hand. She planted her feet and lifted her chin. And then she opened her mouth and released a sound that Cathrall had never heard a human make before. It was a roar, deep and loud and filled with something that sounded like anger. It echoed off the crystal trees and filled the valley with noise. The stalker stopped. Maya took a step forward. She roared again, louder this time, and began banging her spears together. The sound was sharp and strange and wrong. It did not belong in this environment. It was not natural. The stalker took a step back. Cathrall watched in disbelief as Maya advanced on the creature. She was tiny compared to it. She had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons at all. But she walked toward the apex predator like she was the dangerous one. She was screaming now, words and sounds that mixed together into pure noise. She swung her spears through the air. She stomped her feet. She made herself as loud and strange and unpredictable as possible. The stalker watched her with its 6 eyes. Cathrall could see it thinking, calculating, trying to understand what this creature was doing. This was not how prey behaved. Prey ran, prey hid. Prey did not scream and charge and act insane. For 43 seconds, human and predator faced each other. Then the stalker turned and walked back into the shadows. Maya stood there for another minute, still holding her spears, still ready. Then she lowered her arms and let out a long breath. Her shoulders dropped. Her hands were shaking slightly. She walked back to the camp on legs that were not quite steady. Cathrall found his voice. How ... what? You. Maya sat down heavily by the fire. She was breathing fast, and Cathrall realized that she was covered in sweat. Her calm had been an act. She had been terrified, but she had done it anyway. Predators, she said between breaths, are careful. Big predators especially. They can't afford to get hurt. Out here, there are no doctors. A broken bone or a bad cut could mean death. So they don't take risks. They go after easy prey. Weak prey. Prey that runs and hides. She looked up at him. I needed it to know that I'm not easy prey. But you could have died, Kethril said. It could have attacked you. Yeah, Maya wiped sweat from her face. It could have. But I knew something about predators that it didn't know I knew. What? Maya smiled weakly. They don't like surprises. That thing has been watching us for days. It learned that we're slow, we're soft, we make fires and stay in one place. It thought it understood us. Her smile turned sharper. I needed to show it that it didn't. Kethril was quiet for a long moment. He looked at Maya, this small human with no natural weapons and no natural armor, and he felt something shift inside him. You are a persistence predator, he said slowly. Maya looked at him with surprise. You know about that? I read about it in the human species file. Your ancestors hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. You are not fast or strong, but you do not stop. He paused. The creature realized that, didn't it? It realized that you would not stop. That if it attacked you, you would fight. And you would keep fighting until one of you was dead. Maya nodded slowly. Something like that. Most predators don't want that kind of fight. Not when there's easier prey somewhere else. Kethril looked out at the forest where the stalker had disappeared. You scared it? I confused it, Maya corrected. But yeah, maybe a little scared too. That night, Kethril could not sleep. He lay in the shelter and thought about what he had seen. A human, small and fragile by galactic standards, had faced down one of the most dangerous predators in the known universe. And she had won not through strength, not through speed, but through something else? Something that Kethril was only beginning to understand. Humans were not the biggest, or the strongest, or the fastest species in the galaxy, but they had something that other species did not. A strange and terrible quality that made them refuse to accept defeat, that made them fight even when fighting seemed pointless. Kethril had always wondered why humans had spread so far across the galaxy. How quickly. Now he was starting to understand. Outside, Maya sat by the fire and watched the darkness. The stalker was still out there, somewhere. She could feel its eyes on her, but it kept its distance now. It had learned something. It's about humans today. Something important. On the 12th day, the sky turned green. Kethril noticed it first. He was outside the shelter recording observations about the crystal trees when he looked up and felt his blood go cold. The electromagnetic storms that had been dancing across the sky since they arrived were gone. In their place was a solid wall of green clouds rolling toward them from the north. Maya, he called, his voice tight with fear. Something is happening. Maya came out of the shelter and looked at the sky. Her face went very still. She did not say anything for a long moment. Storm, she finally said. Big one. Kethril checked his scanner. The readings made his hands shake. Temperature was already dropping. Atmospheric pressure was changing rapidly. Energy levels in the clouds were off the charts. This is not just a storm, he said. This is a planetary event. My scanner says it will last for at least 3 days. The temperature will drop below the survival threshold for most species. Maya was already moving. She started pulling supplies into the shelter, checking their water containers, adding fuel to the fire pit. How cold? She asked. Kethril looked at the numbers on his scanner. Cold enough to kill me within hours. My species cannot survive in extreme low temperatures. Our bodies do not generate enough heat. Maya stopped moving. She turned and looked at him with an expression he could not read. The shelter won't be enough, she said. It was not a question. The walls are too thin. The heat will escape. Kethril felt despair settling into his bones. I am sorry, Maya. You should survive. Your species is more adaptable. But I stop. Maya's voice was sharp. We're not doing that. We're not giving up. I am not giving up. I am being realistic. Maya walked up to him and put her hands on his shoulders. Her grip was firm and warm. Remember when I told you about the caves? The ones I saw when we first crashed? Kethril thought back. On the first day, Maya had mentioned seeing rock formations to the north while her pod was falling. He had not thought much about it at the time. "The caves," he said slowly. "You think they would provide better shelter?" "Caves stay at a more stable temperature. If we can find one that's deep enough, we might be able to ride out the storm." Hope flickered in Kethrel's chest, but it died quickly. "How far away are they?" "About 6 hours on foot, maybe more." Kethrel looked down at his thin legs, at his fragile body that was already struggling in this environment. 6 hours of walking through hostile terrain, with a deadly storm approaching, with temperatures dropping every minute. "I cannot make that journey," he said quietly. "I am not strong enough. My body is not designed for this." Maya did not argue with him. She did not tell him he was wrong or that he was giving up. She just looked at him with those steady human eyes. "Then I'll carry you," she said. "That is impossible. I am almost your size. You cannot carry me for 6 hours." Maya smiled. It was a strange smile, almost sad. "You really don't know much about humans, do you?" She started moving around the camp, gathering supplies. She took rope made from plant fiber and pieces of fabric from the pods. She worked quickly and efficiently, her hands never stopping. "What are you doing?" Kethrel asked, making a harness. "Something to keep you on my back and distribute your weight." She looked up at the green sky. The clouds were closer now. "We need to leave soon. The storm will hit in about 2 hours." Kethrel watched her work. He wanted to argue, to tell her that this was madness, that she would kill herself trying to save him. But something in her face stopped him. She was not asking for his permission. She was not giving him a choice. She was just going to do it. 20 minutes later, they left the camp. Kethrel was strapped to Maya's back, his forearms wrapped around her shoulders, his legs secured with rope to keep him from slipping. The harness held his weight against her body, spreading it across her back and hips. Maya carried 2 spears, some food, and a container of water. Everything else was left behind. The journey was terrible. The ground was unstable, shifting and cracking beneath Maya's feet. The crystal trees whispered warnings as the storm approached. The temperature dropped steadily, and Kethrel could feel his body starting to shut down. But Maya kept moving. She walked through terrain that would have stopped most species in minutes. Her legs pumped steadily, one step after another, never slowing, never stopping. When she stumbled, she caught herself and kept going. When her muscles cramped, she grunted with pain and kept going, and she talked. She talked the whole time about her grandmother, who had taught her to survive in the wilderness. About her cat back on the station, a fat orange creature named Toast, who liked to sleep on her pillow. About her first time camping as a child. When she had gotten lost for 3 hours and had to find her own way back to camp. "That's when I learned," she said between heavy breaths, "that panicking doesn't help. You have to think. You have to focus. You have to take things one step at a time." Kethrel listened to her voice and held on tighter. His body was getting colder. His thoughts were getting slower, but Maya's voice kept pulling him back. "Stay awake," she said when his grip loosened. "Talk to me. Tell me about your work. Tell me about Valoria." So he talked, told her about his research, about the species. He had studied about his home planet where the weather was always perfect and nothing wanted to kill you. He told her about his 17 degrees and his papers and his reputation as one of the best xenobiologists in the sector. 17 degrees, Maya laughed. "That's impressive. I barely got through basic engineering school." "You are the most capable person I have ever met," Kethrel said. His voice was weak now. "Your degrees do not matter. What matters is that you know how to survive." Maya was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. "I know how to not give up. That's different." The storm hit when they were still an hour from the caves. The green clouds opened up and released a torrent of rain mixed with something that burned when it touched skin. The wind howled. The temperature dropped so fast that Kethrel could feel ice forming on his body. Maya wrapped him tighter in the fabric. She had brought and kept walking. She was shaking now. Her muscles were failing. Her breath came in short, painful gasps. But she did not stop. Kethrel wanted to tell her to put him down, to save herself. He was dying anyway. There was no point in both of them dying on this terrible planet. But he could not make his mouth form the words. And then, Through the storm, he saw it. A dark opening in a wall of rock. The caves, Maya saw it too. She made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob, and she pushed forward with her last strength. They made it inside just as Kethrel's vision started to fade. The cave was dark and cold, but it was dry. The storm screamed outside but could not reach them. Maya set Kethrel down gently and immediately started building a fire from supplies she had carried. Her hands were blue from cold. Her whole body was shaking. But she built the fire anyway. When the flames finally caught, Kethrel felt warmth spreading through his body. He was alive. Against all logic, against all probability, he was alive. "You carried me for 6 hours," he whispered. Through a death world, in a storm. Maya was sitting by the fire, hugging her knees to her chest. She looked exhausted and sick and completely drained. "Yeah," she said, "I guess I did." The question had been burning in Kethrel's mind since they crashed. "We barely knew each other. I am not your family. I am not even your species. Why would you risk your life for me?" Maya looked at him with tired eyes. She thought about the question for a long moment. "You needed help," she finally said. That's it. That's the whole reason Kethrel did not know what to say. In his culture, such sacrifice was rare. People helped their families, their communities, their species. But a stranger? An alien? There had to be a reason. There had to be something to gain. But Maya had not done it for gain. She had done it because it was the right thing to do. Because she could not look at another person in danger and walk away. Kethrel understood something then. Something important about humans. Their strength was not in their muscles, or their endurance, or their ability to adapt. Those things were impressive, but they were not the core of what made humans special. The core was something else, something harder to define. It was the choice to help. The decision to carry someone through a storm, even when every logical part of your brain told you to save yourself. It was compassion, given freely, without expectation of return. Kethrel looked at Maya Chen, this small human who had carried him 6 hours through hell, and he felt something he had never felt for another species before. Respect. True, deep, absolute respect. "Thank you," he said. "I will not forget this." Maya smiled weakly. "Just don't make me do it again. My back is killing me." Outside, the storm raged on. But inside the cave, the fire burned warm, and 2 survivors rested side by side. They were still stranded on a Class-12 death world. But somehow, that did not seem quite as frightening anymore. Day 22 on Nexer 7. And Kethrel was complaining about leaving. "I am just saying," he said, watching Maya pack their supplies. "We have a good situation here. The cave is warm. The water source is clean. The fungi garden is producing well." Maya laughed as she rolled up their sleeping mats. "You know we're on a death world, right?"
On the same death world.
"You were terrified of 3 weeks ago."
Das.
"But we have adapted. We have a system, we have." Kethrel paused, looking for the right word. Comfort. It was true. The cave system they had found during the storm had become something close to a home. Maya had turned the entrance chamber into a living space with a permanent fire pit, storage areas, and sleeping quarters. Deeper in the cave, she had discovered a pool of geothermally heated water that she proudly called the galaxy's worst hot tub. Kethrel had been terrified to enter it at first, but now he had to admit it was effective for warming his cold-blooded body. They had also found a chamber filled with edible fungi that grew in the mineral-rich water dripping from the ceiling. Maya had created a proper garden. And now they had a steady food source that did not require hunting. But the strangest development was outside the cave. The Nexarian stalker had started leaving gifts. It had begun a week ago. Maya had woken up to find a dead animal at the cave entrance. She had assumed it was random until it happened again the next day. And the next. And the next. "I think it's trying to court you," Kethrel had said on the 4th day. "Don't be ridiculous," Maya had replied. But she had also started leaving bits of food outside. And now the stalker sometimes sat at the edge of their camp like a strange, terrifying guard dog. Kethrel called it concerning. Maya called it our security system. Today, however, everything was about to change. The distress beacon they had been trying to repair for weeks had finally started working. The signal had been picked up by a Galactic Council vessel. Rescue was coming. Maya finished packing and stood up. She looked around the cave that had been their home for almost 2 weeks. Her expression was hard to read. "You'll miss it too," Cathrell said quietly. "Maybe a little." Maya smiled. "But I also really want a shower. A real shower. Hot water and soap and everything." They walked outside to wait for the rescue ship. The valley looked different now. Less hostile. Less deadly. It was still a Class 12 Deathworld, of course. The atmosphere was still acidic. The ground was still unstable. The crystal trees still hummed with radiation. But somehow it felt less like an enemy and more like a place. A difficult place. A dangerous place. But still just a place. The stalker was watching from the tree line. Maya raised a hand in a small wave. The creature tilted its massive head and then turned and disappeared into the forest. "I think that was goodbye," Maya said. "I think it wanted to eat us and decided we were too much trouble," Cathrall replied. Same thing. The rescue ship arrived 20 minutes later. It descended through the atmosphere with careful precision, clearly expecting danger. When it landed, the cargo door opened and a full squad of armed soldiers rushed out. Behind them came the rescue commander, a grizzled Torvan warrior named Koss, who had served in 2 galactic wars, was wearing full tactical armor and carrying enough weapons to take down a small army. He stopped dead when he saw Maya and Cathrall. They were standing calmly by the cave entrance. Maya was holding a spear she had made herself. Cathrall had a notebook filled with scientific observations. Behind them was a well-organized camp, with a fire pit, a water collection system, and what appeared to be a garden. "What?" Commander Koss said slowly. "Is this?" "This is our camp," Maya said cheerfully. "Sorry about the mess. We weren't expecting guests." The commander looked around in disbelief. His soldiers spread out, checking for threats, but found nothing. Just a functional survival camp on a planet that was supposed to be unsurvivable. "You've been here for 22 days, Koss said, "on a Class 12 Deathworld, with no supplies." "We improvised," Maya said. Koss stared at her for a long moment. Then he slowly removed his helmet and rubbed his face with one massive hand. "Of course you did," he said. "You're human." The journey back to the station took 3 days. During that time, Cathrall was examined by medical officers who were amazed that he was alive. Maya was examined by medical officers who were amazed that she was in better physical condition than when she had left. "How is that possible?" one of them asked. "You were stranded on one of the deadliest planets in the known galaxy." Maya shrugged. "Good exercise. Fresh air. Kind of." Word spread quickly through the station. A human and a Valorian had survived on Nexor 7 for over 3 weeks. People started asking questions. Then they started asking for interviews. Then they started asking for the full story. Cathrall gave them the full story. He wrote a report that covered everything that had happened since the crash, every survival technique Maya had used, every moment of adaptation and innovation, every time she had faced death and simply refused to accept it. The report was 847 pages long. The Galactic Council classified it at the highest security level, but the summary made its way through official channels. And the key points were clear. Humans do not recognize the concept of an impossible survival scenario. They simply view it as a challenge. Recommend all future Deathworld expeditions include at least 1 human crew member. Recommend also that the Galactic Council avoid any armed conflict with the human species. Their psychology is not compatible with defeat. 6 months later, Maya received a commendation, a promotion to senior engineer, and 17 job offers from research teams who wanted a survival consultant. She also received a package from Ketz. Raw inside was a book. The cover showed a human standing on a rocky planet, looking up at an alien sky. The title read, "Camping, the Human Art of Refusing to Die." The author was listed as Cathrall, senior xenobiologist, with thanks to Maya Chen, who taught him that survival is a choice. Maya opened the book and found a handwritten note on the first page. My dear friend, this book is now the third best-selling publication in the galactic science community. It has been translated into 847 languages. It is required reading at 43 universities. It has been cited in over 2,000 academic papers about human biology, psychology, and survival behavior. I could not have written it without you. Not because you gave me the information, but because you taught me something more important than any data. You taught me that the most powerful force in the universe is not strength or speed or intelligence. It is the simple decision to not give up, to keep going even when everything seems impossible, to carry someone through a storm just because they need help. That is what makes humans special. Not your bodies or your technology or your spread across the galaxy. It is your hearts. Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for showing me what courage really looks like. Your friend always. S. I heard you are being assigned to a new deep space exploration vessel. Please try not to crash on any more death worlds. My heart cannot take the stress. Maya laughed and wiped her eyes. She set the book carefully on her shelf, next to a photo of her grandmother and a small crystal she had brought back from Nex AR-7. A week later, she boarded the GSV Endless Horizon, a deep space exploration ship heading into uncharted territory. The crew was made up of 12 different species, and they all watched nervously as she came aboard. The captain, a tall Valorian with silver skin and careful eyes, met her at the airlock. Engineer Chen, she said formally. Welcome aboard. I understand you have experience with difficult situations. Maya smiled and shouldered her pack. You could say that. The region we're exploring is largely unknown. We don't know what dangers we might face. That's fine. The captain studied her for a moment. You don't seem concerned? Maya looked out the viewport at the stars stretching into infinity. Somewhere out there was danger. Unknown threats. Worlds that wanted to kill anything that landed on them. She had been there before. She would probably be there again. And she would handle it the same way she always did. Captain, Maya said, turning back with a grin. Where I come from, we have a saying. There's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. Apt! The captain blinked. I don't understand. It means that problems are just situations you haven't adapted to yet. Maya walked toward the engineering section, ready to meet her new crew. So whatever we find out there, we'll figure it out. She paused at the doorway and looked back. Besides, she added, sounds like fun. Captain watched her go with an expression that was half worried and half impressed. Behind her, one of the crew members leaned over to another and whispered, Is it true that humans evolved on a death world? The other crew member nodded slowly. Class-A, they say. Fire, floods, earthquakes, predators. The humans call it Earth. They say it's beautiful. They both looked at the doorway where Maya had disappeared. No wonder they're like this, the first one said. Yes, the second agreed. No wonder at all. And out in the endless black of space, the endless horizon turned toward the unknown, inside. A human engineer was already planning for whatever came next, because that was what humans did. They survived. They adapted. They refused to give up. And somewhere, somehow, they found a way to call it camping.